Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Commodore retired Sadeed A Malik. I'm the Chief Executive of Karachi Council on Foreign Relations. It's an honor and a great pleasure, Excellency, to welcome you. Ambassador, His Excellency Bernhard Schlagheck is a career diplomat, and he graduated in law and economics, and after that he started banking career, but then he shifted to diplomacy, and then he was into different countries: Kuwait, NATO, Brussels, European Council, Moscow, and now he is Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Pakistan. We have a great regard for Germany and all over the history, and therefore I invite you and the members to start your informal discussions.
This is I think the fifth time I come to Karachi, but so far I haven't made it to this prestigious council. And since my tenure is drawing to a close now, I thought I have to see you and meet you at least if I come for the last time to Karachi, which I actually do. So my tenure ends by the end of the month, and I'm here in Pakistan, and I just wanted to see you. I mean, pay my respect to this very prestigious and very, I would say, traditional, one of the most traditional council on foreign relations of the country. And also, of course, seize the opportunity to have a kind of open and possibly frank discussion with you. Because the council, particularly devoted to foreign policy issues, on the strategic and foreign policy situation of the country, of your country. So perhaps a brief word on our bilateral relation. I mean, we had a Nadia last year with the celebration of the of 70 years of diplomatic relations between our two countries. I mean, that was relatively lavishly celebrated. It started here in Karachi. We had a vessel, a Bundeswehr, a German Navy vessel here, for a relatively rare occasion. I think it was the first after, I don't know, 20 years or so. But it was in reciprocity of a ship visit of the Pakistani Navy in Hamburg. So that, I would say, ushered in what we call German weeks in Pakistan, which then had, of course, the central event in Islamabad with the Prime Minister and a number of ministers, but also had a German. I would be very happy if we could enter into a kind of conversation about German, European, Pakistani foreign policy relations and particular prospects. And I would be very interested to have your view, but I know that this country, and that is one of the great, I would say, the great advantages of this country is great diversity, and sometimes aspects coming from the very important business and social centers like Karachi that are not always, I would say, decently and appropriately reflected in the discussions in Islamabad. So that is also for me an opportunity to have from very important and relevant members of, I would say, Karachi society, your view on foreign policy in the region, foreign policy between Pakistan and Europe, and perhaps prospects for times to come. For the moment, thank you very much.
from a South Asian perspective, something that irritates us and is now almost becoming annoying at the masses level is how what is happening in India to Muslims is completely ignored in the Western narrative of human rights, including what is happening now, which includes razing down their homes, and where they firefight on the diplomatic front but continue to do everything which is against norms of human rights and humanitarian law on their land. And with all due respect, sir, the situation in Afghanistan, I think isolating the Taliban and pushing them against the wall has only deteriorated the situation on the ground, including rights for women. And I think the West needs to rethink its policy there.
I already see why I wanted to come here, because we have a very good and a frank discussion. First, on Russia and India, on this comparison between Russia, Ukraine, India, Pakistan. You see, also, I have to say, I'm not a big expert in the history of the subcontinent, but I'm an expert in Russian history. And you see, the history of the Soviet Union is also a sort of, I would say, colonization project on their own territory. I mean, they colonized basically all these, particularly the Central Asian and the Caucasian countries. I mean, which are now independent.
Austrian Empire, German Empire,
and the crux with the Ukraine is that is, to some extent, the cradle of Russia. That makes it so, I would say, so annoying for the Russians to accept, because what is now Russia is actually, or has actually been emerged from Kiev and, I would say, environment out of Kiev.
NATO has been aggressive in expanding eastwards, and after the collapse of the USSR, Warsaw-type countries have been encouraged to apply for NATO membership. Now, seeing things in this context, Mr. Zelensky requesting the NATO membership, wasn't it the last straw on the camel's back, provoking Russia?
I agree with you. There is really a grain of truth in what you said. Although I think the sequence is a bit different. Yes, it is true, after the demise of the Soviet Union, there were a number of countries, new country, newly erected, newly in existence countries, who then, for their own purposes and for their own political considerations, decided they wanted to join NATO. And for instance, the Baltic countries, part of the Soviet Union, as we all know, they did so. And that was not, I would say, that was not received very, I would say, pleasantly by the Russians at that stage. But what can you do? I mean, it has to do with the right of each and every country to determine its own political face, its self-determination. I mean, that is what we are, and very rightly so, what you are requesting, for instance, for Kashmir. So it was their, I would say, original and genuine right to opt for a closer relationship with NATO.
Excellency, I have listened to all your arguments, discussions, and it's been a very pleasant listening. I have a little more understanding which a lot of people do not know, and perhaps you also do not know. But I've worked for 20 years with East-West Institute, and the people that I worked with in Brussels were Ambassador Gunter Colford,
Yeah.
and then Ambassador Peter Metcalf,
Yes.
and then Ambassador Martin Fashion. I worked with them, and therefore I could a little understand of where the
German position.
And obviously, the personal side, my granduncle, he was one of the founders of the People's Party, Mr. Ziegeler, married a German. And another grand from my father's side, another from my mother's side, also was Dr. Sadeed, who was actually did it in Munich in 1936 and was taken prisoner along with the German legation and moved to Bombay. So I have a lot of history behind. I think recently, with all the events that have happened, the most striking thing which I find in Germany was your rearmament.
No,
That was a very, very striking. It was the first time
paradigm.
paradigm shift in this. And obviously, nothing is very simple. Everything is complicated as to where the Ukrainians were during the Great War, the Russian speaking, the German speaking, etc. But my only point is that I do feel that Germany should take a stronger, more positive role than they have before. And you have done it in the recent past, in France and only France. You and France have actually led Europe. This thing has not come to pass. Europe was certainly bound to certain directions, very positively. And I think, I feel that Germany should now assume its rightful role. But I think, I find that there is a lot of commonality between Germany and Pakistan on many issues. And I think this needs to be force multiplied. And I think, this discussion, we should carry on this interchange of ideas and carry on interchange of ideas at the local level in Karachi and also in Islamabad. Because what we need to do is have more frank discussions. Because it is only the discussions that you can avoid conflict. So I think I'm very grateful to you. I'm very grateful to you and for being here and giving us so much time. I thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Great pleasure.